You know that feeling when you're batting in the nets? Everything just clicks. You're timing it, you're seeing it early. You feel like you could bat all day. Then you get into a game and it's like you've never held a bat before. Same player, same technique, completely different result. If that's you, this isn't a technique problem. It's what's actually happening in your mind under pressure. And once you understand this, you'll stop guessing and start fixing it properly. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through exactly what's going on, why your game changes, what's actually happening inside your mind while you're at the crease, and how to build a mindset that actually shows up in matches. This is the same system I use with players inside the Century Club. And by the end of this video, you'll see your own game very differently. Here's the first thing to understand. You don't have two different techniques. You have two different versions of yourself. Because in the nets, you feel free. You trust your game. You're not worried about the outcome. But in games, well, something shifts. You start thinking about getting out. You start thinking about what people think of you. You start trying to control everything. And the moment that happens, your game tightens up. Your movement changes, your decision-making slows, and you walk off thinking, what was I doing there? To understand why this happens, you need to understand what's going on inside your mind, when you're out there batting. I call it your inner team. And you have three very important team members: the captain, the player, and the gatekeeper. And once you see this, you'll start recognizing it every time you walk out to bat. Now, first is the captain. The captain is your conscious mind. This is the voice inside your head. It's the part of you that thinks, plans, and analyzes. And here's the important part. The captain is actually trying to help you. It's trying to protect you. It's trying to keep you at the crease. It doesn't want you to get out. But under pressure, it usually does the opposite. So picture this. You walk out to bat. First few balls, you're okay. You're watching it, you're reacting, getting a feel for things. And then the situation starts to build. Maybe you're on 10 runs. Maybe you've just, played and missed. Maybe the bowler's, beaten you with a good ball. And that's when the captain kicks in by saying things like, don't get out now. This bowler looks good. We'll watch the next one. You nearly edged that. Now, what if you get out now? Just be careful. And notice the shift. You've gone from playing to protecting, from reacting to thinking about outcomes. Now, here's the real problem. The captain works in words, step by step, one thought at a time. But batting doesn't work like that. Batting is instant. Ball released, you read it, you move, you play, all in a fraction of a second. So when the captain gets involved, it slows everything down. You start thinking, are my feet moving? Should I leave this one? Am I in the right, head position? And by the time you've thought it, well, the moment's already gone. And that's when you get that half decision, that little hesitation. You're not fully forward, you're not fully back, you're not fully committed. And that's where edges happen. That's where you miss time balls, you should normally middle. And here's the frustrating part. Straight after you get out, the captain goes quiet again. Where's he gone? And you're left thinking, what was I doing there? That's not how I bat. Because it isn't. This was the captain trying to control something it was never designed to control. And this is where most players get stuck. They think, I just need to focus more. I need to concentrate harder. But that just gives the captain even more to do, more control, more interference. What you actually want is not a loud or louder captain. It's a quieter one. You want the captain to set the intention, then step back and shut up. Trust what's already been trained and let the player do what it already knows how to do. Because your best batting has never come from thinking more. It's always come from thinking less. And this is where your next inner team member becomes so important. And I'll call them the player. The player is your subconscious mind. This is where your game actually lives. Your timing, your reactions, your natural flow. This is you in the nets, when you're just playing. You're not thinking about your technique. You're not telling yourself what to do. You just see the ball and you react. That's the player. And when the player is in control, you play your best cricket. Now, here's the part most players don't fully understand. The player is built through repetition. Every ball you've ever faced, every drill you've ever done, every hour you've spent batting, it all gets stored here. Not as thoughts, but as patterns. So when you're training properly, you're not just practicing, you're programming the player. You're programming your subconscious. This is why you can face a ball at pace and still time it. You don't have time to think. There's no space for, front foot, head over, play straight. That's way too slow. The player has already decided before the captain even finishes the sentence. Think about when you're in a really good net session. You're not aware of your technique. You're not analysing everything. You're just in rhythm. That's the player running the show. And this is why repetition matters so much. Because repetition builds trust. Not conscious trust, but subconscious trust. You've probably heard the saying, practice makes perfect. Now that statement is kind of true. But if you're practicing the wrong things, that doesn't make you perfect. It just makes those patterns stronger. So really, it's perfect practice makes perfect. The more quality repetition, you have, the more the player knows what to do without needing instruction. It just recognises the situation and responds instantly. The more the player knows what to do without needing instruction from the captain, it just recognises patterns. Ball, the line, a length, speed, and it responds instantly. So when players say, I just want to get out of my head and play, what they're really saying is, I want the player back in control. But here's the problem. In games and under pressure, the captain steps in and starts interfering with something that was never meant to be controlled consciously. And that's when the player gets disrupted. That's when timing goes out the window, flow disappears, and everything starts to feel forced. So the goal is not to teach the player more in the moment, it's to trust what's already there. It's to trust what's being trained. Because your best cricket is already inside you. It just needs the space to come out and perform. And the final inner team member is the gatekeeper. Now, this is the part most players have never been shown. And the reason you've probably never heard it explained like this is because most people don't even realise it exists. The gatekeeper is your creative subconscious. And this is the part of your mind that decides what's true about you. Not what you want to be true. It's what actually it believes is already true. It doesn't think, it doesn't analyse, it accepts, and then it acts on that. So everything you've experienced as a player, every score, every failure, every time you got out for a low score, and on every good innings, every comment by a coach, a teammate or a parent, every thought you've repeated to yourself, all of that gets fed into the gatekeeper. And over time, it builds a picture of who you are as a cricketer. Not who you want to be, it's who you truly believe you are. So you end up with identities like, I'm someone who gets starts but never goes on. I'm not great under pressure. I always find a way to get out. I'm better in the nets than in games. Now here's the part that changes everything. The gatekeeper's job is to prove itself right. So when you walk out to bat, it's not neutral, it's looking for evidence to confirm what it already believes. If the belief is, I don't perform under pressure, then the moment pressure builds up, the gatekeeper steps in and says, yeah, this is it. This is where it all happens. And it feeds that into the captain. The captain starts talking, don't mess this up now. Here we go again. Just be careful. And now the player is caught in the middle of it, tightening up, second guessing, trying to control things. And the outcome, well, you get out in a way that feels familiar. And afterwards you think, why does this keep happening? But from the gatekeeper's point of view, it worked perfectly. It proved the belief right. And that's why this is so powerful, because it explains something most players have felt but couldn't explain. You're not just playing the bowler, you're playing the identity the gatekeeper has already created for you. And until that changes, you'll keep getting pulled back to the same patterns. Now here's the shift. The gatekeeper isn't your enemy. It's actually doing exactly what it's designed to do. It just works off what you fed it over time. So if you fed it doubt, fear, and past failures, That's what it runs, you know. But if you start feeding it something different, new experiences, new evidence, you know, it will accept that as well and become your new identity. Because the gatekeeper doesn't judge. It decides, it doesn't decide, you know, what's good or bad. It just accepts what's repeated and makes it real. So when players say, you know, I just need more confidence, what they're really saying is, my gatekeeper is running the wrong identity. And that's why real change doesn't come from one good innings. It comes from consistently shifting what the gatekeeper believes is true about you. So let's slow this right down and put you in a real moment. You're out in the middle. You've worked your way in. You know, you're 20 not out. You've hit a couple of nice shots. You know, you've timed one through the covers beautifully, maybe clipped one beautifully, you know, off the pads. You're starting to feel good. In the nets, this is where you just keep going. You're in rhythm, you're in flow. You're seeing it well. You're not thinking about too much. You're just playing. But in a game, something, you know, starts to change. There's that pause between balls. You know, you look around the field. You become aware of the situation. Maybe someone calls out, good start, well done. Maybe you glance at the scoreboard. And then, without even you realizing it, the gatekeeper steps in. Now, this isn't obvious to you. It's just a quiet thought underneath everything, you know, that might say, this is where you usually get out. And the moment that thought lands, everything starts to shift. That belief feeds the captain, and now the voice gets a little louder. Don't do anything stupid here. Just get through this spell. You know, you don't want to throw this away now. And notice what's happening. You've gone from, you know, as I said before, playing freely to trying to protect what you've got. Now the next ball comes, same bowler, same length, same opportunity, you know, you'd normally take, but this time there's hesitation. You're not fully forward, you know, you're not fully committed. You're half playing the shot, half thinking about the outcome, and that's all it takes. A slight check in your movement, split-second delay, a decision that's, you know, not fully clear, an edge, missed time, or a shot you don't even recognise, and you're gone, you're out. And as you walk off, you're frustrated because deep down you know that wasn't you. And you're right, it wasn't the player. It was the gatekeeper feeding the captain, and the captain interfering with something that shouldn't get involved with. It should just be instinct. Same batsman, same skill, same situation, completely different result. And this is the moment most players don't understand, because from the outside, it just looks like a mistake. But from the inside, it was a chain reaction that started, you know, before the ball was even bowled. And if you've ever felt that shift, you know, where you go from, you know, flowing and seeing it clearly, trusting your game, to suddenly trying to survive, you know, just trying not to get out, you know, then stick with me. Because what I'm about to show you now is where this actually starts to change. Now, here's where most players go wrong. They feel that moment and they try to fix it by trying harder, saying things like, just need to focus more, you know, need to concentrate, need to stay positive. But all of that just gives the captain more things to do, more thinking, more control, more interference. And it feels like you're doing the right thing, but your game actually gets, you know, really tight, you know, less clear and less instinctive. Because in pressure moments, you don't rise to what you're trying to tell yourself, you fall back to what you believe about yourself. That's the gatekeeper. And that's why it feels like no matter how much you try, you end up back in the same place. Not because you're not good enough, but because the identity hasn't yet changed. So this is where the real work is. Not by fixing your technique, not by trying harder, it's changing what the gatekeeper believes is true about you. Because once that shifts, everything else starts to follow. And this doesn't happen by accident. It happens through repetition, as I said before, what you consistently tell yourself, and what you consistently see in your mind. Not just once before a game, not just when you feel good, but over and over again. So instead of walking out hoping it goes well, you build a clear identity. I'm a player who trusts my game under pressure. And at first, you know, that might not feel true. But the gatekeeper doesn't check if it's true. It just checks if it's repeated. And over time, that starts to become familiar. Then believable, then just automatic. And this is where visualization becomes powerful, because you're not just imagining random shots, you're building the new identity. You're seeing yourself walk to the crease, handling that pressure, making good decisions, trusting your game. And the more you do that, the more the gatekeeper starts to accept it. This is who I am now. Now, this is where everything either sticks or falls apart, because if your training doesn't match this, nothing changes in games. Most players train skill. They hit the balls in the nets, they groove their shots, but they don't train what actually breaks down under pressure. They don't train decision making. They don't train consequence. They don't train game situations. So they build a player that works in the nets, but not in matches. I had a player once say to me, nets feel easy, games feel like a completely different sport. And that's exactly what it feels like. Because one has no consequence, nets, and the other has everything attached to it. So we changed his training. We added pressure, simple things that we did, set targets, gave him consequences for getting out in the nets, specific match scenarios. Now suddenly, every ball meant something. And within a few weeks, the gap between nets and games started to close. Because now the player was being trained in the same environment it had to perform in. Everything comes back to this loop. Your beliefs shape your identity. Your identity shapes how you show up, and that creates your results. And then your results go straight back and reinforce that belief. So if the belief is, I don't perform under pressure, every innings becomes proof of that. But if you start shifting that belief to, you start interrupting that loop, and once that loop starts working for you instead of against you, that's when real change happens. Not in one innings, but consistently. Now, you can probably see this isn't just a small adjustment. This is a complete shift in how you understand your game. And the truth is, it goes a lot deeper than what we can cover in this video. So everything I've just, walked you through, the captain, the player, the gatekeeper, and how belief drives identity, it's all broken down properly in my book, The Century Within. So if you're someone who's sitting there thinking, this is exactly what's been going on with me, the book is a place to go deeper and start putting this into practice. The link is down below in the description. So remember, belief shapes identity, identity shapes behavior, and behavior produces results. So until next time, bye for now.